So here's the thing. What do you, the professional sales rep, when really you're an entrepreneur, right? If you're on commission, you run your own company, whether it be under the global umbrella or the flag, if you will, of another company, but you're an entrepreneur at heart. So what do you struggle with? Why do we not share it with people? And how can we overcome it today on the Logistics Life? Hey, everybody, welcome back. And we have an amazing individual today. If you've not heard of Dan Gordon, well, buckle in, grab a coffee, grab whatever you want, sit down and pay attention for the next 30 minutes because this is going to blow your mind. Now, Dan's story goes way back, and I won't get into too much of it, but Dan, like most of you salespeople out there, lost everything and had to climb back. And how many times, y'all, be honest, you're thinking you're golden, you're thinking you got this whole business development thing down pat, and all of a sudden one day, gone. Just like Thanos flicking his fingers and people disappearing, right? 30 years in the industry, I know that happens, my friends. So Dan, welcome. I hope I didn't give too much away because I know the conversation that we're going to talk about today, I think is going to be astronomical because as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, really, we struggle with a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot, and this is for me, and I mean, you probably see it as well because we're very like-minded. This is where to me, social media is just the biggest BS on the planet, right? Because not very many people out there actually share the challenges. It's always, oh my God, it often reminds me of a serial gambler, right? I don't know if you ever had a friend that was a gambler.
I did, yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, you never hear about the losses, but when they win 10K, you're like, dude, I won 10K last night. And I'm like, awesome. How much you put in the last 6 months to get that 10K?
Yeah.
100? So you're still down 90.
And I love that, Dan, because first of all, I've never met a Dan I didn't like. So what a wonderful experience this is. Like when you walk into a casino, you hear ka-ching, 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 right? Like it's designed to make you think everybody's hitting it hard, everybody's winning except you. So all you got to do is start plunking in your dollars, and you're going to be a winner too, right? And that
I never thought of it like that.
Right. Oh, look, the thing, if you want to learn about how to influence people, sit at a casino. Every design of that casino is fitted to make you spend money. And there's a lot of great lessons, and there's a lot of horrible lessons in there. Like I am flatly against the gambling industry, because what it does is it sells people on a false idea that success is easy, and it's not. And not only is it not easy, and not only is it hard, but it's built to be hard because so few people do it. And only the successful people are the ones who are willing to stand in the fire and experience themselves as their worst selves, find the goodness inside, and move through it. Because unless you're willing to do that, right? I'll shut up in just a second. Unless you're willing to do that thing where you look at the mirror at your worst and go, I love you. I love your tenacity. I know things are screwed right now, but I love how you're sticking in it. Unless you're willing to do that, you will fail.
Talk about fire in the first minute and a half, Dan. My Lord. So, okay. So, I can't wait to play in this sandbox, brother. So I have a question for you, and it's something that I've often struggled with. Full transparency. It's something that I've heard time and time again, and then I get into the whole realm of put it into the universe, it will happen. Focus on what you want to create as opposed to what it is.
Completely.
We all know entrepreneurship is hard. We all know starting a business, running a successful business. And for all of you watching and listening, this means you, the commission salesperson, because you are running a business, again, like I said in the intro, inside a business. What would you say to people that say, Dan, I get that, but I don't want to keep saying it's hard because all it's going to do is bring hardship to me. and I'll share a personal experience with you. The reason why
Mm.
specifically I'm asking this. So, about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I got a chance to be on Voice America Radio
Oh, wow.
and have my own radio show for 3 months on Voice America. And I immediately jumped at it. And I thought
Yeah.
to myself, and I had just finished going through one of the hardest times of my life up till
Mm.
that point in my life.
Mm.
And I knew about adversity. So I decided to call the show The Adversity Connection. And what I was trying to do was connect adversity with the benefits.
Hmm.
And how do we see the benefits in adversity, and how do we get an equal or greater benefit out of the adversity? Right along the lines of the Napoleon Hill whole concept of Think and Grow Rich,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And it was interesting because about halfway through, so about 6 weeks into the radio show, I found adversity after adversity
Mhm.
after adversity hitting my life. And I remember speaking to a dear friend of mine, Rico Rakoski, and I was saying, I don't understand it, Rico. It's like I'm repeating these conversations from 3, 4 months ago. I thought I solved them and everything.
Yeah.
And he said, Dan, just stop for it. And again, this could all be, just the way the mind processes. He
Hmm.
says, he says, like, when did you create the adversity connection? I go, about, 2.5 months ago. He goes, when did all your issues start? I said, about 2 months ago. He goes, could it be a connect? So it's interesting because I switched the conversation to little conversations today. And so the radio show, I immediately rebranded to Little Conversations Today. And what we focused on was the little conversations in our head and
Yeah.
how to change them to positive conversations. And it was like overnight, issues went away.
Mm.
And that's when the first time, and I'd been a personal development freak for ages. Like,
Yeah.
I'm that guy that was like, quantum leaps. Oh, I got it. This,
Right. Right.
and it
Yeah.
was like, and most of the time those quantum leaps let you down. Like, I don't know if you ever read Jeff Olson's Slight Edge, but he talks about that personal development genre
I know
and
what you're talking
how,
about.
like,
Yeah.
and he's saying like he goes like, it kind of puts more people off guard. So how would you address when somebody would say, okay, I understand it's hard, but if I keep thinking, well, this is what I have to go through to get to my success, will I not keep going through these issues? Does that
Yeah.
make sense to you, Dan?
Yeah. And I
Okay.
love that. And it's funny that you say that, because just this morning, Rosalind, the love of my life, was saying, you've got to focus more on the positive, right? And I get that, right?
Mm,
Here's the thing. The thing is, imagine yourself at the gym and you are lifting a very heavy weight, right? And you're feeling that struggle. The lactic acid is building up in your muscles. It's hurting. It's really hard in that moment to say, man, I'm going to really love how fit I am after doing this for about 6 months,
mm.
right? In that moment,
Yeah.
Dan, in that moment. And here's why. Our brains, look, we can either think about positivity or like pleasure or pain, right? But
Yeah.
our
Yep.
brains are designed to focus 75% on the pain, on relieving pain, and 25% on going for the pleasure. Right? That's how human beings have survived this long. Look, if when we were cave people and we were like, everything's going to work out fine, like we would just get eaten by tigers, right? The fact that we heard a
Yes,
rustling in the
that's true. Yeah.
bushes and we thought,
Yeah.
we're screwed, and we ran away, that's how we survived. So flash forward a
Mm.
couple million years, right? Now we're living in this world where our brains are still designed to focus 75% on avoiding pain. So, yes, you can elevate yourself, and you can, like, we aren't just machines. So, you can focus your thinking towards positivity, but just understand that there is a large part of you that is focused on moving away from the pain. So,
Yes.
I don't want to shine sunshine up anybody's keister, right? Instead,
Hmm.
I want to meet people where they are. And most people where they
Mm.
are like, how do I avoid, or how do I move past this pain that I'm feeling? Right.
Yes.
And if I say something like, well, why don't you just reframe it and say, actually, I'm this, this, and this, I'll be like, shut up. Right. You know,
Yes, for sure.
right.
Yeah.
And so, coming back all around here, Dan, you have to surrender to the truth that things are going to be difficult. And when they're difficult, the first thing you're going to think of is, how do I feel better? And
Mm.
the fastest way to feel better is to abandon the thing that's difficult, right? If I stop lifting the weight, then the pain goes away, but then you don't get
Mm.
what you want. So
Yes.
how do you do that, right? How do you stay in the difficulty long enough to get what you want? And
Long enough for that heavy weight to become something you crave as opposed to
yes,
uh, whatever the opposite of crave would be.
well, right, avoid. Like right now,
Avoid. There you go.
like
Yes, yes.
in
Yeah.
my life and in the lives of my clients, when something is uncomfortable, the first thing I think of is, oh, something really cool is waiting for me. Like I can't wait to get that. You
Oh,
know,
that's awesome. You know,
but
what you're
right.
saying really reminds me of, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Arnold on Netflix, where he goes back into his pumping iron days from
Oh, right,
1975,
right, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And he says, and he was talking about how weightlifting made him feel. And
Hmm.
he reframed it in more of a sexual way, but it
Yeah.
was, and in Arnold, he says, and I think that's why I became so good at what I was doing, because it wasn't, and just when you said that, it clicked. I mean, I heard him say this many times, and just right now the light bulb went off where it wasn't pain for him.
No.
It was like a massive pleasure to lift heavier weights and heavier weights and heavier weights. And he's like, and he would said his mindset was every rep was pleasure.
Hmm.
And I do believe in life, when we pursue the pleasure, it's more fun than avoiding the pain.
It
Would you
is.
agree?
It
Yeah.
is. But you have to get
Mm,
there. And so, like, this is
yes.
something I say to people a lot. You have to be lousy before you can be good. You have to be good
Yes.
before you can be great. You have to be great
Mm,
before you can be amazing. So if you aren't willing to be lousy, you'll never be amazing. Now, the question is, how do you slog through lousy? Like, how do you stay in lousy to get good? How do you stay in good to get great? How do you stay in great to be amazing? How do you stay in it when many things inside of you are saying, God, if I just quit, I'll feel better? And I have
okay,
a
you got
way.
to expand on that, because
Okay.
I can't wait to hear that. And I'm thinking I just have a post that I'm going to put on after this session, just to gear people up for when this goes live, because yeah. Anyways, go. I'm
Okay.
dying to hear this.
So I'm going to answer that question by asking you a question. And that is,
Okay.
Dan, how would your life be different if you no longer felt self doubt?
Oh gosh. I think I'd get way more done in a day, because as for me anyways,
Yeah.
specifically, as much as I know I have self-doubt, and as much as I know self-doubt is a part of the equation when you're doing something you've never done,
Hmm.
it does stop me for a little bit, meaning
Yes.
things that I have zero self-doubt in, it's like an instantaneous, as soon as it's time to do it, or as soon as it's time to come up, it's like bang, and it's like almost like a SWAT team coming in and just like getting it done.
Right.
Whereas when I feel that self doubt, even now, and I've talked about this so many times, Dan, I've helped people, we can sometimes help people through things that we still struggle with. Um, I find there's a delay. And so if I'm doing that 3, 4 times a week, it could be an hour, maybe an hour and a half delay on productivity. And
Yep.
to me, that's, 52 hours, an extra full week of work at the end of the year that would be done, as opposed to like avoiding that first little bit, or procrastinating would probably be a better word, because
Yeah.
in the end, high performers still do it. It's just, it
It's
might not be
longer.
that.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
yeah, you
right.
don't have that initial like takeoff launch. You're kind of going off a runway, if you
Right.
will, right? So
So getting back to my original question, right? If
yeah.
you aren't willing to be lousy, you'll never be amazing, right? And then we're like, well, how would your life be different without self doubt? Because you can see if you didn't have self doubt, you wouldn't worry about being lousy, right? You would just move through it.
Yes.
So now you cannot eradicate self doubt any more than you can eradicate fear. Like fear saves us. Like imagine crossing the street fearlessly. You'd get hit by a car. right? Fear is an important part of life, right? When people say fear means false evidence appearing real, I'm like, bullshit. It's real. Fear is real. Fear is how we
Mm.
survive. So you cannot
And
get
would you say fear would also be allocated to kind of awareness?
it is
Um,
right, yeah,
yeah. Okay. Okay. Yep.
and and continuing on this track, right? So fear and self doubt work together, right? Fear is preventing you from doing something really stupid, right? And that's where self
Mm.
doubt, but then self doubt blooms and becomes like the weed of your garden and it takes over. So, how do you eliminate self doubt? You can't push it back. You can't convince self doubt that it's wrong. It keeps you right any more than just pulling a weed. It'll just pop up somewhere else. The way that you get rid of self doubt, the way that you stop worrying about being lousy is you build a relationship with it. Now, I want you to imagine that you're shipwrecked on a deserted island with one other person. And this other person is someone that you do not agree with at all in any way about how to get rescued. Like you want to build a signal fire, the other person goes, no, 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 that's a terrible idea, right? Any way that you want to get rescued, the other person disagrees. The only thing that you guys agree on is that you need to work together to get rescued, but you have no idea how to do it. Like you have no idea because you disagree on everything. And one day you wake up and you go over to this person and you say, you know what, let's forget about this whole rescue thing for a moment. Let's just talk. Can we just have a conversation? And you're like, do you have any siblings? Are you married? Like, where's your favorite place that you've traveled, right? And you begin building a relationship with this other person. You just forget about whether or not you're going to get rescued. And you start to learn about them. And he says, yeah, when I was 4 years old, my family's house burned down. Like, oh, that's why he doesn't want to build a signal fire. Oh, that makes sense, right?
Mm.
So you start building this relationship with the other person. Eventually, you start understanding why he's so resistant and you start agreeing with him and you start right and then he sort of eases back on the things that he was pushing back on and before you know it now you've built this new relationship with this person that you didn't agree with and that's how you overcome self-doubt. You build a relationship with it. When your self-doubt says no, 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 don't do this, you'll fail, you're like, oh, I get it, I hear you, this makes perfect sense, you're right, if I do this I might fail, and that would be a horrible feeling. And I'm not kidding around it. I'm saying out loud, have this conversation with this part of you.
Hmm.
Because like you mentioned earlier, I lost everything, my self-doubt. I was only self-doubt. And the way that I came back from it was to build a relationship with it. And I still do that
Mm.
on many things. And so
It's
this
interesting.
this
We're
is the
very
path.
much alike with that. I
Yeah.
lost everything in 2009 and 10.
Yeah.
Everything I'd worked on for a decade, lost it all in what felt like overnight. And then realizing in the end, it was my ego towards it that
Yeah.
made me lose it.
Yeah.
And my fear of, and in the end, it really, and it took a lot of self, like introspection, I guess, for
Mm-hmm.
lack of a better word, like going inside.
Yeah.
And in the end, I started to really realize, Dan, that I was so afraid to fail when the company
Mm.
was successful because I had this goal, I had this mission. We hit 36 million in sales and we officially became like a solid company. We were no longer an infant
Yeah.
company. And I had the fear that what if I fail?
Mm.
And I realized that and this is, I mean, I did this myself. It's not like I went to professional help for it, but the
Yeah.
introspection and going inside, I realized that I figured, I thought I was afraid of having a success fail and
Mm.
what the next level was. Because, they often say, you get to the top of your mountain, it's staying on top that
Yeah.
is a challenge, right? Like opening a business and getting your company to a point where it's successful is tough, but staying there and growing it is 10 times tougher because what got you there is not going to get you here, which is not going to get you here. And it's like, and,
Exactly.
and as
Yeah.
Brendan Burchard says, we learn into the person we want to become.
Yes.
And I realized that for me was the big piece of the puzzle. Was like, I was terrified. I was
Mm-hmm.
a 26-year-old kid. I didn't think people would ever listen to a 26-year-old. Like, it was all of it, right? It was all this craziness inside my head, I realized in the end.
Yeah. And in order to become the person that you are today, you had to go through a trial. Right? Now, you
Yeah.
didn't have to lose everything any more than I had to lose everything. But for me, it was similar. Like my ego caught me like a fishhook, and
Mm.
I was not able to evolve in that state. I had to lose everything in order for that evolution to take place.
How long did it take you to realize that?
Well, when it happened, like it was in a month, I lost about $100,000, right? Which is like nothing compared to a lot of people. You know, I talk with a lot of people, they're like, well, lucky. But it's still, right? It was still
Pocket change.
I know, right? It was still a big ego
Yeah.
crash.
Elon last week lost 11 billion in like
Yeah, like,
literally 2 hours, you know?
right. So, on the floor in snot and tears, writhing in the pain of the ego, right? I just lost what I thought that I was. And what I realized, Dan, is that ultimately is that I created this because I had this marketing company, and it turns out I hate marketing. I'm just really good at it, but it was never supposed to be a career.
Mm.
So I actually, beneath the level of my awareness, I hired a pathological liar to destroy the company, and that's what he did. Right. And now at first I was blaming him, like, oh, this guy screwed me. But no. I wanted out. I didn't have the courage to leave and to shut it down. So I went through this process of getting this guy in to destroy the company, and he did what I wanted. Now,
Now, are you saying more along the lines of like you saw the red flags but ignored them? Because
in retrospect,
subconsciously
yeah.
you. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. I just want to make sure, just so
Yeah.
everybody listening, because they've probably all had those red flags, ignored
Yeah.
them, right? Like in our industry in logistics, a red flag would be, you're using a carrier for the first time, and just the conversation, you're like, I know this is going to go bad,
Yeah.
but I make more money, or but it's the only one here and I want to make a profit on it, but I don't want to let the customer down. Instead of saying, okay, if I don't follow my gut, I'm not only going to let the customer down, they're going to be pissed, as
Yeah.
opposed to saying, hey, listen, I don't have any tier one guys there. I maybe got a tier four. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to put my image and credibility on this person,
Hmm.
but we just, we want, and some people it's the money.
Yeah.
Some people it's the, I don't want to let anyone else into my customer, as a fear, right? So we go back to that fear piece of our brain,
Right.
as a fear where if I open up the door, they're going to steal my business,
Yeah.
or to that effect, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting that was the way you thought. Okay, go on.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm
And
loving this.
so, right. And so I realized that I did this. This happened for me, not to me. Right? It happened
Mm,
for me, not to me. And so, like I'm a personal development junkie just like you. I realized that anything in my life is created by me because I'm the common denominator, and so I must have created it for a reason. And the reason I created it is to get out of marketing. And so, what did I want? Right? And that's the question that you who are listening right now, you have to continually ask yourself the question, what do I want? And so, what I wanted, because I had been in personal development. I had spent a decade flying around the country, flying around the world, teaching these personal development seminars. I love doing that, but I wanted to do it for high performers. High performers were entrepreneurs. That's what I wanted to do. I was going to be a business coach. Now, the self doubt, Dan, crept in because I said, well, who's going to hire a business coach who just failed at business?
yes,
But
sir.
instead of focusing on that, I just wiped the whiteboard of Dan Gordon clean and recreated myself as Coach Dan Gordon. 8 months later, I walked out on stage in Dallas, Texas, being paid $10,000 for my very first speaking gig. Right? Now, it's a fun part of the story, but it's those 8 months that I had to slog through. Those 8 months where I deconstructed who I was and stop trusting. Yeah, stop trusting or stop saying this is who I am, and I just became who I was becoming.
Yeah.
And and one
I
of
think so
yeah.
many people go through that, Dan. I think so many people, for lack of a better term, have that imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
right? And I'm constantly saying to people, like, you have something people need,
Hmm.
regardless of tenure, regardless of what. Like, I think everybody's story, everybody's position in life, somebody can learn from.
Absolutely.
And right? But that imposter syndrome, like you said, the fact that you just got wiped out.
Yeah.
How are people, and I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but mentally, I know going through that myself when I lost the brokerage company, how are people going to listen to me? How do I make this as part of my story? And I remember one person saying to me, because I'm like, well, I lost a $36 million brokerage because of
Yeah.
my ego. And they're like, but you lost a brokerage. Why would somebody hire you? And it was the first time I had ever thought of that idea. And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. And then in my head, I'm going, no, but hold on. I learned lessons. Like I learned specific things that you might need to go through a $36 million loss to learn.
Mm,
Do you want to go through that loss or do you just want me to share it with you? And
yeah.
that's when the person I was speaking to goes, bang, that's your in.
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
like, well, right.
And the other thing, Dan, is it's interesting. It's an interesting story. Losing everything is a very interesting story, and people will attach themselves to it. But
Mm,
one of the great things that came out of this was a recognition that my thinking alone um, will always, well, I can't say always, but often drives me to a place that isn't productive, right? My thinking alone, right? So you
yeah.
always need help. And
Mm,
one of the ways that I got help is that, look, I'm a high stress individual, right? My brain is constantly running. And for high performance entrepreneurs, there are four killers of productivity. You need more sleep, right? You never get enough sleep. You need less stress, right? You always feel stress. You need to enhance your focus, right? Your brain is going to go in a lot of different places, and you always have to optimize your performance because you can always do better. Now,
yeah.
I was searching for how to help myself in these four areas, and I tried everything. Like meditation, never worked. All the like even like microdosing, all these things. And I finally found something. And what I found ended up being on my phone, and it is this app that's called Newcalm, Nucalm. And what Newcalm is, it is a it is a deliverer of what's called binaural beats. And binaural beats are these waveforms, these audio waveforms that exist under music. Now, there's a lot of them out there, but in researching this company, Newcom, turns out that over 56 professional sports teams use them. They are used by the Department of Defense, Special Forces, the Navy SEALs, Air Force, the FBI, like people with a lot more stress than me. And
Mm.
this thing has even been used in over 2 million surgeries as an alternative of general anesthesia. And what it is these different channels of music, and you put on your headphones, you put on your eye mask, and you say bye bye to the world. Now, I started using this at a time of great stress, and it instantly began to transform my experience. I started
Now, are
getting
you
more
using
sleep.
this at night, Dan? Sorry to interrupt. Are you using it at
Yeah.
night or are you just kind of during the day if you feel stressed, come on, you put your headphones on,
So
you close your eyes? No?
yes and yes, because there's different channels of
Okay.
it, right? And so at night, I put on Newcom, puts me out like a light, like I sleep like a baby. In the morning, I wake up and I use this thing called Ignite, which is one of the channels that just gets my mind going. In fact, this morning I came up with, while I was in Ignite, I came up with a new coaching program that I am really excited that I want to start launching. I'm not going to talk about it because it's just the germ of an idea, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this
yep.
is
We'll have
this
you
is
back
it.
on when you launch
Okay,
it.
right.
Yep,
Um,
done.
and so during times where I feel stressful, I'll put on Newcom, and in the
I'm
morning when
I'm
I
finding it right now. I'm
okay,
listening to you. I'm just going to my
so
app store to find
so
it right now.
so I called up the company and I said, I don't know what you've done, but this is lightning in a bottle. I want to be a part of promoting this, and I got in touch with the CEO guy by the name of Jim Poole, this visionary, an amazing man, and he's like, how did you
Nucalm?
Nucalm? Yes. Now I got
Okay.
on the horn with him. I said, Jim, I want to give away 1 week free samples of New Calm. And he's like, done. So this is what you can do to get a free experience with the New Calm. Just text the word calm, CALM, to this number, 213-409-8366. 213-409-8366, and text the word calm, CALM. I am telling you that in 1 week, you will have a tremendous transformational experience. This is something that I was searching for. I found now that there's a lot of binaural beat companies out there. This is the only one that has been designated by the FDA as a class 3 medical device for treating anxiety, depression, and insomnia. It's being used with veterans. I cannot speak highly enough about this because of the way it has transformed my life. All of my clients use it. My entire family uses it. And I'm telling you, you who are listening, you've got to use this thing because this is going to take the edge off of so many things that you struggle with. Again, text CALM, CALM, to 213-409-8366. It's a game
And I'll
changer.
also put that in the show notes for
Please.
everybody as well.
Thank you so much. Yep. Yeah, I'm telling everybody about this because of what it's done for me. And when you learn about it, you'll see the way it's changed. This guy, Jim Poole, the CEO, he's traveled all over the world to all these different countries whose government is adopting new calm for their for the people in their country, especially countries, smaller countries who are struggling, because it's knocking out a lot of the mental health problems that they're having. Now, in this country,
and mental health is actually rampant now.
It
after
is
COVID, right after the pandemic
right.
and stuff. Yeah.
In this country, we don't seem to understand that it's that it can be a positive force if it's not a pill or an injection, right? That's what we're really stuck on in this country.
Yeah,
but I'm telling
we really
you,
are.
right? And this thing sounds like magic because it's not a pill or an injection, but you don't need that. There's a lot of modalities for healing yourself without having to spend a lot of money. Of course, the medical industry doesn't like that idea. That's why they poo-poo these things. But I'm telling you, give it a shot. You will find what I've found.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, so I've downloaded it. I'm going to be sending that text for all of you again. It's 213-409-8366 and text the word CALM, CALM.
Yep, and you'll get a
all
link.
Right. So that was number 3, right? What was number 4?
Oh, no. Well, that's the whole deal, right? It improves sleep.
Oh, okay.
It relieves stress. It enhances your focus and it optimizes your performance, right? There's different channels in it for each one of those things. And by the way, Tony Robbins is now involved with this company. Tony Robbins, and he's not taking a dime from it. He just loves it. So you can get on there and some of his speeches are infused with Newcom. It's fucking crazy.
Beautiful. I can't wait to get on it. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get back to
please. Sorry for
what I meant
up
by the no. Actually, I really appreciate that because I think more people, even though they might not verbalize it, are going to get on it. And you realize, I know I will. Ever since I got diagnosed and had my fight with cancer, I mean, my mental stability sometimes just isn't there. I was just telling my wife the other day, I said, I find it comes in waves now where I'll just be sitting here and all of a sudden the world will be collapsing around me. And it's not really, it's just mentally it's collapsing around me. And it's, and she's bought me a few books, which are awesome. I've started turning all my books into GPTs only because if I'm looking for for me, it's that execution of getting just velocity in what I'm doing for me is everything these days. And so I've got thousands of books and I'm halfway through GPTing all of them.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that is because and I've segmented them, right? Sales, closing, marketing, mindset, personal. And because I'm here's the issue I'm having. How do I solve it? And it'll list the 4 different books with those specific sections that I solve it. So for me, I don't have to go grab the book because I love reading, but I love implementing the material in it as opposed to just reading. But for me, it's a velocity mechanism where I can access the information in seconds as opposed to minutes. Again, 20 minutes a day for a year is 2.5 weeks of productivity.
Yeah.
So if you lose 20 minutes a day in your work process or in your goal achievement, you've lost 2.5 weeks of productivity at the end of the year.
Bang. And that's, I've set up GPTs too, and I love it because The thing that I hate about books and reading is you forget most of it, and there's no way
Mm,
to really access the information. But with the GPT, you can ask a book a question. I mean,
yeah,
that is
love it.
outrageous, right? And
Hmm.
that's what,
Yep.
like I set one up for my team. I have a team that helps me with my, a team member that helps me with my LinkedIn. And so I set up a GPT that can help them create LinkedIn posts in my voice.
Hmm.
And what
Yep.
I did, I went into it. I was struggling with something, and I asked my GPT a question about me, and it gave me Coach Dan Gordon advice. And it was like, holy crap, this is amazing! Right? It's like
Yep. Isn't
exactly
it
what I would
cool?
do. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
So I am interested in definitely getting you back when you launch that new course.
yeah.
But until then, share with people how they can get a hold of you, what your big modus operandi is, how you
Mm,
can help them, because this show hits a lot of CEOs, a lot of executives, a lot of salespeople in the logistics and freight markets,
yeah.
supply chain and logistics. So just share with them, how they can get a hold of you, because I really want to get this word out for you, Dan.
Thanks. So the most productive way is to I'll say it this way. I've given out this in to a lot of people in a lot of modalities, and very few people take me up on it. And it's because they're afraid that they're going to see something in themselves that they don't want to see. And so
Mm,
you are listening. If you have courage, you will do what I'm about to offer. And that is text the word help, HELP, to that same number, 213
mhm.
409 8366. 213 409 8366. Text the word help, and you will book a 15-minute call with me. Now, you may think it's crazy because thousands of people are hearing this and like, well, that's a lot of time. Very few people have the courage to do it. And I only
Mm.
want to talk to people with a tremendous amount of courage, people who are willing to climb the 100-foot wall to get into the realm. And so that's why I put it out there. So that's one way to get in touch with me. That's the most productive way. And by the way, he might sell me something. I won't. At the end of that call, you will not be a client because I will not ask you to be one. Right? That's just, I mean, if you want to be a client, we can talk about that later, but I'm just clear about that. Right? The other thing, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just go to LinkedIn and look for Coach Dan Gordon, Gordon, and you'll find me. The other way is through my website, Dan Gordon Enterprise, just like Star Trek, Dan Gordon Enterprise, and everything Coach Dan is on that website. And those are really the best ways to get in touch with me. But if you have the courage, book a call with me.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for being here, Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm blown away. I'm definitely going to be texting help and calm to you. So you'll see me coming through. Can I text it all at the same time, or got to text it twice?
Well, once you
Probably
type
twice,
in,
just to
yeah,
hit
yeah,
the algorithms, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Once you type in the number, you text the word help, send that. Text the word calm, send that. Text the word
Okay.
gap, GAP, and you'll get something else too.
Oh, really? What do we get
Yeah.
with GAP?
So I wrote a book called Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. And I wrote that book when I was killing my own stories about why I couldn't achieve. And in
Nice.
that, there are 10 stories that you tell yourself that stop you from taking action. And that's how to overcome those stories. Stories like, I can't afford it, I'm not ready, it doesn't feel right, maybe later, all those stories, what those stories are made of and how to overcome them.
Phew. All right. So gap, help, and calm,
Yep,
everybody. 213-409-8366.
that's how we
Dan,
do it.
thank you, my man. I can't wait to have you back again.
It has been a treat. Be well, my brother.